Hey everybody, this is Randy Brown for Cameo Man and logging with Mr. Brown. Or no, dang, I've been out of the loop for so long I even got my sign off wrong. Hey everybody, this is Randy Brown for Cameo Man 2021 and the Mayor of Magic. That's right, I'm here and I am doing a review of the Dark Knight Trilogy. So we're gonna wait until some people come on in and we shall see how it does. Uh, A lot of people said they wanted to see. Oh dang! It went from 6 to 6 again. It went from 6 and then it went to 13 and then it went to 6. So I'm gonna do my intro one more time. Hey everybody, this is Randy Brown for Cameo Man 2021 and the Mayor of Magic. Welcome to my Dark Knight review. Uh, this is gonna be my thoughts on the entire trilogy, and I'm just going to go through each one of these movies. I'm going to start with Batman Begins and then go all the way to The Dark Knight Rises. And I'll give you the lowdown on what I think. So, first off is well here before I do that, I should update you guys on a few things. Number one, I have lost a lot of weight. It's not so much as what I started doing as what I stopped doing. I stopped drinking 2 cans of Monster every day. I cut it down to 1 can, and then I stopped staying up really late, um, except for karaoke nights, which I stay up to like 1:30 to 2:30. But if it's not a karaoke night, I usually go to bed around 11 or 11:30. And that's basically what I do. So I'm going to take you through the Batman trilogy, starting with Batman Begins, and because I was on somebody else's stream and he said the reason I like Batman Begins is because it shows how Batman begins. I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, neat." Okay, so the thing that I like most about Batman Begins is the structure of the storytelling. Um, it's not a linear progression. The movie Batman Begins is kind of told. What up, Lucky Chucky? The movie Batman Begins is kind of told from a structure of like Pulp Fiction, where it bounces around in time. It goes like from midway through the movie, halfway through the movie, to the beginning, to the end. Uh, hey, I saw Amy Jo Johnson did an Instagram live playing piano. She is doing benefit concert for the Los Angeles fire. Didn't get tickets though. She was doing it in her living room. Yeah, I heard about that. Unfortunately, the tickets were outrageously priced. I mean, Amy Jo Johnson is worth it, but I can't afford that right now. I think the tickets were like around $250. So I would like to help out, but really it was like 200 or 250. So I was like, I want to help out, I want to do something, but I can't do it. Why would it be that much for at home? I don't know. Maybe she wants to raise lots of money for the people, but it was it was a lot. Otherwise I would have gone with it, because I love Amy Jo Johnson and I love everything she does. I actually do love her music. She does really good music. So back to Batman Begins. Batman Begins structure is a lot like Pulp Fiction. It bounces back between, past, present, future, uh, you know, goes all the way between those things. And one of the things that I like about Batman Begins is the opening, because it opens with a bunch of bats flying through the sky, and then we see Bruce find the Batcave, and then it really starts, and then it starts in a place that we never ever would have expected to find Bruce Wayne in. We really open with Bruce Wayne in prison, and I thought that was a bold move. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, again, the last place that we would expect to find Bruce Wayne, he's in a prison. So there you go. And then they go to his parents' murder next. And uh in Batman 1989, we find out that the Joker killed Batman's parents. But for Chris Nolan's Batman Begins, it turns out that Christopher Nolan went back to the original comics, and it is Joe Chill that kills Bruce's parents. And and that's one thing that I got to talk about. If you're making a comic book movie based on an actual comic book, is the number one thing you want to do is you want to be comics accurate. I mean, if you're comics accurate, you are God. You are basically, that's the best thing that you can do. Because I mean, like, you know, uh, Deadpool versus Wolverine got a lot of comics accurate stuff in there. Like, in one of the ways they find Wolverine on one of the other planets or one of the other dimensions, Wolverine is like 5'4" and hops off the bar stool, and like he comes up to like Deadpool like right here, And that's the thing. If you want to do a comic book movie, do it comic book accurate. That is the one way that you will be able to that's the one way you'll be able to get viewers and get, you know, do your comic book right. And then another thing that I like about Batman Begins is it starts with a villain that we've never seen before on film. And I thought that was a good move. And actually Batman Begins kind of has three villains. And again, it's not weighed down, it's not ludicrous, it's not stupid. The Dark Knight trilogy was probably one of the most realistic Batman adaptations of all time, you know? And it had three villains. It had Ra's al Ghul, it had Scarecrow, and it had Carmine Falcone. And if you really want to get technical, it also had Victor Zsasz in it too. So four villains. And again, I've said this once and I've said it before. It all depends on how much time each villain gets and whether that time is properly weighted, because all the Batman movies before that, like, well, not all of them, but Batman and Robin, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman 1969, they all had 2 to 4 villains in their movies. And the thing about it is, it's okay to have more than one villain in your movie. You could have 2, you could have 3, you could have 4, but you've got to weight each character properly. You can't just give everybody equal time. Victor Zsasz in the movie was given about like 2 minutes of screen time. Scarecrow got about 15 minutes. Carmine Falcone got about 20-25. And then the main bad guy, Ra's al Ghul, got around like, 30-45 minutes of screen time. So it's not a matter of, you you can't really overpack a movie. You just gotta, if you have like 4 characters, you can't give them all equal time. Like some characters have got to be sidelined, some characters have got to be emphasized, and so on and so forth. So that's my feeling on there being multiple villains in films. So uh now, one thing that I didn't like about Batman Begins is that the fight scenes weren't really up to snuff. Christopher Nolan isn't really known for doing fight scenes. And I really like fight scenes that are like, smooth and flowing and have long takes and are in focus. Like Christopher Nolan's fight scenes, they're choppy, they're blurry, they're quick cuts. And I know a lot of people don't like that, and I didn't like it personally either. So, and then another thing that I think really weighs Batman Begins down are the bad models. Like the models of the Narrows was really bad. It didn't look realistic at all. The models of Ra's al Ghul's temple didn't hold up at all. They looked very phony and they looked very fake. So, like I give Batman Begins a 9.5. I think it was a great film. But there are a few things that weigh it down. Again, the fight scenes weigh it down, the choppiness, the blurriness, the quick cuts, and then the bad models and the bad sets. Like the models did not hold up. They didn't look real. So that's that thing. And then This is really Batman Begins was really start of the Batman no kill rule. Batman didn't kill anybody for the most part in these movies. But again, Batman did kill some people. Like in the beginning where Ra's al Ghul is talking and stuff. The guy who plays Ra's al Ghul's henchman, the one who poses as him, he gets killed. You know, like Batman blows up the temple. Ra's al Ghul the Ra's al Ghul double gets taken out by a falling pillar. And if Bruce Wayne had never set that building on fire, that pillar would have never killed that guy. So again, Batman kind of has a no kill rule, but he does kill a few people during the Dark Knight trilogy, just to let you know. And he does that. He does it in the Dark Knight, and he also does it in the Dark Knight Rises. And I'll be covering that when I get to those movies. But we're still on Batman Begins right now. So yeah, he killed the phony Ra's al Ghul. He was directly responsible for his death. FYI, just to let you know. Okay, so and one thing I liked about Batman Begins is that Ra's al Ghul was really, or no, one thing that I really like is that Commissioner Gordon was really hands-on with this film. He he was more involved than he has been in probably the last 30 years of Batman. Like I think Batman Begins was made in 2002. So 30 years before that would have been like 1972. So Commissioner Gordon hasn't been as hands-on in these movies as he was in the Dark Knight trilogy. They really beefed up his character. He really got in there and got his hands dirty. And Fears Vlogs says, "Yo, gung, gung, chung, vung, dung." Yeah. So yeah, Commissioner Gordon was really hands-on in these movies, and did a lot of stuff. And then one of the things that I liked at the very end, Batman Begins, was Commissioner Gordon says, "Hey, we got a new guy in town. He's really theatrical, like you, has a flair for the dramatic." And then he hands Batman one of Joker's Joker cards. But if you look on the little Ziploc bag, it says arrest, or it says officer who found the evidence was J. Kerr, which really could have been Joe Kerr, which could have been a reference to that Joker has infiltrated the police somehow and came up with stuff. Gave you a like, buddy. Well, thank you. Okay. So, and, one of the things about Batman Begins is that it sets up Rachel Dawes. And Rachel Dawes in this movie is played by the ever hot Katie Holmes. She was pretty hot as Rachel Dawes, and Rachel Dawes is really like one of the only reoccurring Batman love interests that we've had over the course of 3 movies. I mean, unless you want to count Wonder Woman, but Ben Affleck's Batman and Wonder Woman didn't really have a romance. I mean, they helped each other out a few times, but they didn't really, they didn't kiss, they didn't have a date or anything. But yeah, so Rachel Dawes was really one of the only reoccurring girlfriends that Batman has had over the trilogy. Like, I mean, she was in Batman Begins. She died in The Dark Knight. And there are a lot of references to her in The Dark Knight Rises. Like in The Dark Knight Rises, Michael Caine tells him he burnt the letter that she wrote to him. And then there's a few more references. They've got a photo of her, and Talia al Ghul is like, "Who is this?" And he's like, "Oh, someone I used to love." Do you prefer more or less romance in Batman's films? I prefer a little bit of romance in every film. I think every story should be a love story. Pixel Protocol. I think if you don't have love in your story, it's a pretty bland, emotionless story. And there's been romance in probably there's no, not probably. There's been romance in every Batman film. Like in 1969, Batman was in love with Kitka. In Batman 1989, it was Vicky Vale. In Batman Returns, it was Selena Kyle. In Batman Forever, it was Chase Meridian. So I think romance is definitely a key part of a movie. And it's always been a key part of the Batman films. Like Batman has always had a major girlfriend, and probably the only ones that he hasn't had a major girlfriend in was the Snyder Batmans. Like and technically I count the Suicide Squad as one of the Snyder Universe Batmans because had Ben Affleck, he's wearing the Snyderverse suit. So yeah, I definitely think romance is a big part of a movie, and there should be romance in probably every movie because that shows the emotional side of the characters, and that shows that they're human and they do human things. So I hope everyone is good. I agree, it adds a little relation to them. Yeah. So yeah, Rachel Dawes was one of the first, probably the only reoccurring character in a series of Batman films. Again, besides Wonder Woman, but again, Wonder Woman and Batman didn't really have a relationship. They didn't kiss. They didn't do anything. So, uh, yeah. And then one thing I didn't like about Batman Begins is I didn't like the Batmobile. And actually, I don't really think the Tumbler in Batman Begins was the Batmobile because I mean they straight up give it a totally different name. They call it the Tumbler. I think if Batman had the Batmobile, they would have called it the Batmobile. But yeah, like the Tumbler was more like a tank than a Batmobile. And even though it was powerful and had a lot of cool features, and and then they built upon it in the Dark Knight, I really didn't like the look of it. It looked too military. It looked too clunky. It didn't look like any Batmobile we've ever seen before. And I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the Batmobile at all. So yeah. So that is basically all my thoughts on Batman Begins. Again, Batman Begins was a really good movie. I would give it a 9.5. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 10 is again the fight scenes were clunky, they were quick cuts, they were blurry, they were fast editing. I didn't like the fight scenes, and then some of the model work for the Narrows and some of the model work for Ra's al Ghul's lair were kind of wonky. They didn't look real. So I would only take point 0.5 off for that. So and I don't give tens lightly, you know. Like if I give a movie a 10, that means I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Like I would give Terminator 2 a 10. I would give Aliens a 10. I mean, those are just my thoughts. Favorite Batmobile, the 1989 Batman. That is my favorite Batmobile. It looks like a bat. It's pretty cool. Okay. So yeah, so there you go. So those are my thoughts again on Batman Batman Begins. I really again my favorite film of the series is The Dark Knight. And again, I would give The Dark Knight a 10 because not only is The Dark Knight a great film, The Dark Knight it's probably one of the greatest comic book films ever made, and I would say that it is also one of the most realistic films ever made, especially for Batman or especially for any comic book movie, most realistic. And I always said, if you want to make a comic book movie, number one, make a comic book accurate, as I already said, and then number two, make it realistic. The more realistic you make it, the more fun it's going to be. Do you prefer a more serious Joker or the more silly side? Goes to the chat also. I prefer a serious Joker, even though the character is called the Joker and he's supposed to be like a lighthearted character. But yeah, I preferred the serious Joker, and we're gonna get into Heath Ledger's Joker. Um, but let me see here. So the thing I like about The Dark Knight is okay. The intro scene is amazing. The whole bank robbery scene that takes place in the daytime where the Joker is killing off all his men, that shows you how ruthless the Joker is, because basically the Joker is the only guy who makes it out of the entire bank robbery. And they had like 5 or 6 guys. They had, they had Joker's 2 henchmen that went in the building, and then they had the two okay, so that's 4. They had the 2 henchmen on the roof. They had the 2 henchmen that went in with the Joker, and the Joker just basically straight up murdered them all. So that shows you how mean and ruthless the Joker is. And you can't talk about the Joker without talking about Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger's performance was amazing. He actually won an Oscar posthumously for this movie. He won it after he died, which is sad. But, there were a lot of rumors going around. This was a rumor I heard. I'm not 100% on this. But one of the rumors that I heard was, besides the drugs, which were accidental, I don't think he was taking the drugs. I think they had a bad interaction. But one of the things that I think he was taking the drugs for is because he was trying to sleep. Because he said, the Joker character wouldn't sleep. Like the Joker character would stay up all night. And I heard that he stayed up like 6 nights in a row. And that's what started him taking the medication, because he wanted to go back to sleep again. And that's why he OD'd. Fears says, Randy, I love a funny psycho Joker. In many films, we have a good battle between heroes and villains. I heard the sleeping thing too. So yeah, that was one of the things, and that's why Heath Ledger looks so frazzled in a lot of the shots that he's in, because Heath Ledger was staying up like 6 nights on end. And Dr. Phil said, if there was one thing that I could do to turn a normal person into a psychopath, is I would deny them sleep. I would not let them be able to sleep. And, I stayed up for 3 days one time, and it was not a good time. And I actually had to go to the hospital to, get back on a normal sleep schedule. So, yeah, that was one of the things. And Heath Ledger put his all into that movie. See, it feels like I've got a booger right here, but I'm looking at the camera and there's nothing there. Sorry. Feels. Anyways. Favorite actor that played Joker, Heath Ledger, definitely. And one of the things about The Dark Knight is that there's a lot of shocking scenes in this movie. And it kind of hits you like bam, 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 like a sledgehammer each time. Like, I mean, I remember I was in the theater in Arizona watching The Dark Knight, and there were tons of kids around, there were adults. And when the Joker slammed that guy's face into the pencil, I mean, I could hear an audible "oh" from everybody in the audience. Like, everybody was like, "Oh shit!" And that was a really shocking scene. And then my favorite scene in The Dark Knight is where the commissioner at the time drinks the vodka or the Jack Daniels or whatever it is, and then it cuts away to something, and then it goes back to the scene, and it shows the guy's keyboard and the desk, and the keyboard and the desk is smoking, and you're like, oh shit, that guy just drank acid, like, and I'm not talking LSD. That guy literally drank like literal sulfuric acid, and that was a shocking scene. And then the scene where the Mac driver pulls up to the barricade, and the police officer is like, sorry man, we're gonna have to we can't let you through right now. And then the Joker pops up, racks a shotgun, and then just blows the guy away. And I thought, holy shit. And so there were a lot of really like big holy shit moments in that film, you know and one of the things that I find great about The Dark Knight is that I've lived through all of them. Like, I went to the theater to see Batman Begins. I went to the theater to see The Dark Knight. I went to the theater to see The Dark Knight Rises. I went to all those movies. For a long time, I had a ritual that I would see the movie opening day. From like 1985 to like 1999, if I wanted to see a movie, you know what? I was there opening day. I was there opening day for Star Wars, Phantom Menace. I was there opening day for Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, for a long time, if I wanted to see a movie, I was going to see it the day of. That was a big thing. Uh, yeah. So yeah. Um, and what I liked about The Dark Knight is that it built on what came before. It wasn't just a bunch of random stuff. Like the Tumbler had two wheels in the opening of its fuselage, and and they later on turned that into the Bat Pod, and that was pretty cool. Yeah. So, and then again, Rachel Dawes is in this next one. Rachel Dawes wasn't as hot in this film. She was played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Maggie Gyllenhaal is definitely a step down from Katie Holmes. Like Maggie Gyllenhaal, I'd say would probably be about a 7, and Katie Holmes would be about an 8. So there definitely was like a beauty disparity, but they pretty much played the same kind of personality for the most part. And then one of the things that they fixed on this film is all the other Batmans except for the Adam West Batman. The Adam West Batman had a cloth cowl. But the Michael Keaton Batman, the Val Kilmer Batman, the George Clooney Batman, and even the Christian Bale Batman in the first film, they couldn't turn their heads, and that was a big problem for a long time. And Christopher Nolan and the costume designer designed a new bat suit, and they were like, "Oh, dang! Well, what's the reason that we're gonna, give for Batman being able, to turn his head?" And then Christopher Nolan just said, "F it. We'll just make the reason for in the film the same reason that we make it in the movie. It's like we want Batman to be able to turn his head. That's like the main reason why we did the costume design change." Yeah. So yeah. Uh, and then another thing. There was a lot of hoopla around The Dark Knight because Christopher Nolan was at his prime. Right before The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan did this movie called Inception. And what a lot of people don't realize, unless you lived through that time and you heard all the rumors and did all that stuff, is there were a lot of rumors that Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play the Riddler. And before Inception came out, Inception was right after Batman Begins. And before Inception came out, there were a lot of rumors that Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be the Riddler. And Inception actually takes place all in the Riddler's head. And then at the end of the movie Inception, we reveal that it's actually a prequel to The Dark Knight. Now, obviously, none of that ever came to fruition, but there are a few more references to the Riddler in The Dark Knight that I think are worth mentioning. And my friend Chris told me a little bit about this too. Like number one, you got Coleman Reese, and Coleman Reese's name is Mr. Reese. Now, if you say that name real fast, Mr. Reese, it sounds like mysteries. And like in the Batman Forever movie, Edward Nigma was Enigma, like Enigma, and like Mysteries is like Mysteries. So it's kind of like the same thing. And then also, uh, in the scene where the Joker has planted a cell phone bomb in somebody's stomach, if you look at that scar, the scar looks like this. It looks like, or no, here, let me do this. It looks like this. It looks like a question mark. The scar looks like a question mark, and if you look at the little belly button of the guy, it looks like the punctuation mark at the bottom of the question mark. So there were quite a few references in there, and it was pretty cool. Yeah. And then one of the things that you got to realize about The Dark Knight is that Two-Face was not mentioned in any of the promotional materials. You didn't see him in his Two-Face outfit, and they didn't reference Two-Face in the trailers. If you look at all the Batman Begins trailers, I mean, Harvey Dent is in there, and everybody knows Harvey Dent is Two-Face, but they didn't mention Harvey Dent in the trailers. They didn't mention Two-Face in the trailers. They didn't show him getting his face fried, and like at the end of the movie, like, well, like probably 20 minutes from the end of the movie, we see Two-Face for the first time, and it's a big reveal, and that the effects were pretty good at the time, and everybody was like, "Oh my god, this is a serious fucking film." And I really liked that. They saved Two-Face, and they didn't get the big surprise away. I mean, kind of they did, because the theme of the movie is stated in the trailer. The theme of the movie is you either die a hero, or you live long to see yourself become a villain. So that was kind of like a nod at what would happen to Harvey Dent later on in the film. He died a hero, and then Batman lived long enough to see himself become the villain and take the blame for the whole thing. But the thing about the Dark Knight is the Joker essentially won. Like, he wanted to get Batman to break his no kill rule, and he pushed Harvey Dent off the roof and killed Harvey Dent. So in essence, the Joker actually won. He got what he wanted, you know. Because I mean, like, one of the things that determines the end of the movie is the main character's goal, and the main character's goal was to not break his no kill rule, and Joker won, and he got him to break his no kill rule. And actually, Batman killed a few people before this in the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, or no, in the Dark Knight and Batman Begins. Like, there's a scene in the Dark Knight where the Joker is trying to capture Two-Face as he's going through the underground tunnel, and Batman's Batmobile straight up like crashes right into that dump truck, into the dump truck, and smashes the entire front of that dump truck. Now, unless you're a Kryptonian from the planet Krypton, there is no freaking way that somebody could have survived that impact. Like, I'm sorry, but whoever was driving that dump truck died. It would be impossible. I mean, unless the dump truck was being driven by remote, or again, if it was a Kryptonian who could take a building falling on him, whoever that was died. All right. Batman has killed people. He killed people in the Batman Begins. Again, if Bruce Wayne hadn't, set all those fireworks off and the ninja thing, that pillar would have never fallen down and killed the Ra's al Ghul double. So Batman is killed multiple times, killed in Batman Begins, killed in the Dark Knight, and he essentially killed Talia al Ghul in the Dark Knight Rises. I mean, like, at um he shot at Talia al Ghul's truck, which caused her to go off the rails, and I mean, he is responsible for her death. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right. So yeah. And then again, the ending, the shocker, the Joker basically won. And that is all I've got for that. Oh yeah, and there's a few things about Batman the Dark Knight that gets me every time I see it. Like, again, Batman has a no kill rule, but there's one scene where Batman is like going through a mall, and before he goes through the mall, he goes through an alleyway and starts blowing up cars. And it's like he has no idea who was in any of those cars. He blows up like 5 cars. And how do you know, like, somebody wasn't sleeping in their car that day, or maybe, they were just like, they got their heads down, they're looking for like some mail on their, floor or something. Like, Batman could have killed tons of people, and like, he blows up a dumpster, and like, their homeless people are known to sleep in dumpsters. So there were tons of times that Batman could have killed people accidentally. And those 5 cars he blows up, that 6th car had those 2 kids that were going like, brrr, brrr, brrr. Like he could have killed those 2 kids easy accidentally. So there we go. So that covers everything I have to say on The Dark Knight. Again, The Dark Knight was a fantastic movie. I give that movie a 10 out of 10. Like, I mean, and I don't give 10s lightly. Like, there's only a few movies I give 10s to. I give 10s to Terminator 2, give a 10 to Aliens, you know, give a 10 to Avatar 1. So I do not give 10s lightly. Like I mean Fears' favorite film is Ghostbusters, and he gives Ghostbusters a 10, and then I was like, well, what other films do you give it to 10? And he goes, Megan. I was like, really? You give Megan a 10? Like Megan was on par with Ghostbusters? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. The Great Randini, yes. What is the worst Batman movie, Randy? Go. Chicken Wizard, the worst Batman movie is one that everybody here has probably never seen at all. The worst Batman movie is the 1941 Batman. There are no favorite Batman villains in the 1941 Batman. I actually accidentally picked up Batman. I actually picked up the 1941 Batman at Walmart, like back in 1998, 1999. It was a serial, and yeah, it was a serial, so it was basically like 10-minute movies. And I'll tell you, there are some racial terms in this movie. Again, it was made during 1941, and the World War was breaking out, and there were a lot of racial slurs in the 1941 Batman movie, and it's shocking when you hear it. It shocks the shit out of you. But and I've actually heard a good case. There is this one woman online who made a really good case why Batman Forever was probably the greatest Batman movie of all time. And she made a really good case. I don't agree with her, but she made a good case. But I would have to say Batman and Robin, probably the worst Batman film besides the 1941 one. And again, the trailer for Batman and Robin was amazing. I was really hyped up. I was really looking forward to seeing Batgirl. I wasn't too enthused that Batgirl was called Barbara Pennyworth or whatever it was. I wasn't a big fan of changing Batgirl's origin. And do you like Batman the Animated Mask of the Phantasm? Yeah, kinda. Again, that was another one that I saw in the theaters first day. Yeah. So again, we're going into The Dark Knight Rises now. And then even though I think The Dark Knight is a superior movie, I think I've actually watched The Dark Knight Rises probably 20-30% more than I've watched The Dark Knight. Like, it's a really compelling film. There's a lot of really strong characters in there. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean Bane can lift Batman up and just slam his back down on the thing. So yeah. So I mean Bane was a really strong villain, and Catwoman, played by Anne Hathaway, was super in shape. She had an hourglass figure, and I'll tell you, whatever she did to get in shape, I want that plan, because she looked amazing. Catwoman her figure was drop dead gorgeous. And that's one of the things that I like about the Anne Hathaway Catwoman. She worked out, and she must have gone hungry on several days. Because her outfit and her figure was banging. It was amazing. And then again, The Dark Knight Rises had a really good opening, just like The Dark Knight had a good opening. And one of the things that you got to realize about The Dark Knight Rises and The Dark Knight is that Christopher Nolan was doing this thing where he showed the first 6 minutes of the movie, as a trailer before other movies. I think if you went to see Avatar, you would see the first 6 minutes of The Dark Knight. And then there was another movie where if you saw it, you saw the first 6 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane blows up the plane and starts killing everybody. But here's the thing: when they released the trailer, when they released the 6 minutes for The Dark Knight Rises, there was this big hubbub, there was this big uproar. Everybody was talking about it. It's like we could not understand what the hell Bane was saying. Like, and sound has been an issue in a lot of Christopher Nolan's later films. Like sound was an issue in Interstellar. There were some parts of the movie where the music and the sound effects were so loud that we couldn't make out what the characters were saying. And there was a big issue in The Dark Knight Rises. We couldn't understand what Bane was saying. It was a big issue in what was that movie? The next one, Tenet. It was a big issue in Tenet. There were a lot of scenes in Tenet where you couldn't understand what the characters were saying, and the sound was so bad in Tenet that during the third act I was like, okay, I'm sick and tired of trying to figure out the plot to this film. I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the visuals because the sound was that bad. Like Christopher Nolan really needs to up his sound game because Tenet was horrible. I had no idea what was happening during most of the movie because I couldn't hear what the characters were saying. And again, it was a big problem in The Dark Knight Rises. So Christopher Nolan actually took back the copies of The Dark Knight Rises and he adjusted the audio. So Bane's audio was a little bit more, I don't want to say legible is like for writing, but it was more like pronounced. You could hear more of what he was saying better, but it was still a big issue. So yeah. Now one of the things about this film, the two highlights of this film are Bern Gorman and Ben Mendelsohn. Bern Gorman plays John Daggett's sidekick, his henchman. And John Daggett is, a lot of people don't know, John Daggett isn't a canon character, but John Daggett is a reference to Roland Daggett. And in Batman the Animated Series, Roland Daggett is the person who goes on to become Clayface. And, the Daggett company makes this like goo, and if you put it on your face, you can rearrange your face and stuff. And Roland Daggett used it because he was an actor and he could, move his face around and become different people. But John Daggett is a reference to Roland Daggett. So that's something cool. That's a cool, like, little spider web type thing that connects each thing. And now one of the things that I think really that really keeps Batman The Dark Knight Rises from being a great movie is the same thing that happened to Saban's Power Rangers. And the problem with Saban's Power Rangers and The Dark Knight Rises is because the superheroes do not show up until about halfway through the movie. Like Batman and The Dark Knight, he doesn't really show up until like 50 to 60 minutes into the movie. And Christopher Nolan did that on purpose. He says, like, I want, Batman when he shows up to be a big deal because, in the movie continuity between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, Batman has been gone for a long time. So Christopher Nolan said, I want it to feel like that for the audience. So I'm not going to show Batman until 50 minutes into the movie. And I think that's what really killed the movie for a lot of people. And the same thing with Saban's Power Rangers. I mean, like, you see Zordon in the Power Ranger suit, and you see Rita Repulsa in her Power Ranger suit, and then that half a minute is done. And then in Saban's Power Rangers, we don't see another suited up Power Ranger for like 50 minutes into the movie. And the first time we see it is Billy, and he doesn't really do any action. So the first action we see in Saban's Power Rangers takes place about 60 minutes into the movie. And a lot of people didn't like that. They didn't like it in Power Rangers, and they didn't like it in The Dark Knight Rises. So that was one of the big things. And one of the things that made me angry at the time of The Dark Knight Rises was this. I actually owned Batman 500. I actually owned Batman 500, where the cover of the thing is where Bane is breaking Batman's back, and I actually had that comic book. But the problem is that I was going through tough financial times at the time, and I needed to pay the rent. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'll go down to the pawn shop, and the Wizard magazine was a magazine for comics, and in the back of each magazine, they would have like a listing, like how much the comics were worth. And Batman 500 at the time was like worth $60, and I thought, okay, I'll go to the pawn shop and I'll get $16. Yeah, and so I went and they said, I'll give you $5 for it. And I'm like, $5? Are you serious? I mean, Wizard says this is worth $60 at least. And do you know the Dark Knight Rises is coming out right now, where Bane breaks Batman's back? Like, you're gonna give me $5 for this? And they were like, yeah. And I was selling some other stuff too, but I'm like, you gotta give me more than five. So I think they gave me like $10. But really, I should have asked for more, because that was ridiculous. I don't even think I got 20% of worth what that thing was worth. And you know how, like, on Pawn Stars, people come in and they, like, create a big, like, scene. I created a big scene at this pawn shop because I was like, this is worth way, 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 way more than $10. Yeah, so yeah. And then one of the things that I didn't like about the Dark Knight Rises was the bat. The bat was I guess it was Christopher Nolan's version of the Batwing, but the bat really didn't even look like a bat. It looked like a lobster. It didn't look like a bat shaped thing. Because like in the previous Batmans, like in Batman 1989 and Batman Forever, the bat the Batwing looks like a bat symbol, and that was the big thing about the Batwing. But the bat, again, it looked like a lobster more than a bat. I mean, and I can't really see how that thing could actually lift off if it were to be an actual vehicle. Like Nolan said, he did the science, and you should actually be able to create this thing and it fly and stuff. I don't know how that works. I don't know the science behind it, but it did not look like a bat or any bat related thing. It looked like a lobster. So that's all I got to say about the bat. I didn't like it. Again, I didn't like the tumbler and I didn't like the bat. Like, those were two, they felt wonky to me. And then one of the things that I didn't think, which you could have easily fixed for the Dark Knight Rises, is basically Bane's plan is to blow up Gotham. And he says, I'm going to give Gotham 6 months before it blows up because I want to terrorize Gotham. And, the thing about it is that, the terrorize Gotham thing doesn't really make sense because, the government could have invaded and, taken them down silently, which is what they did in the end. If I was doing Batman, I would just say, you know what? I'm going to terrorize Gotham because it's going to take 6 months for this bomb to decay. It's a simple fix, and I didn't know why they didn't go with that. It was really weird. It doesn't make sense. But there were a lot of references to previous Bat projects and previous Bat incarnations. Like, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that during the football scene where Bane blows up the football stadium, uh, when he blows it up, the football player turns around, and if you look at the back of the guy's football jerseys, it says Ward, and Burt Ward was the person who played Robin in Batman 1969 and Batman the 1966 movie. And then also, if you look at some of the signs that are in the audience of the crowd that's cheering, you'll see Big Al Auto Parts. And what a lot of people don't know is Darren Aronofsky wrote a script, and the script got heckled out of existence by a lot of online haters because somebody allegedly got hold of the Darren Aronofsky Batman script, and there was a line in the script, again, it was a fake script. There was a line in the script where it says, Gordon has a beer and cheats on his wife. And that was a meme for a really long time. But Darren Aronofsky's script, Alfred wasn't a butler. Alfred was actually an auto mechanic that took Bruce Wayne in, and Bruce called him Big Al instead of Alfred. A lot of people don't know that. So there you go. And then, this, I don't believe. This was a rumor that I don't believe. There's a scene where Bane is like in a hallway at the football stadium, and the kid is singing, and Bane goes, "That's a lovely, lovely voice." Well, and Christopher Nolan claims that was ad lib. I don't believe that for two reasons. Number one, Bane would not actually be listening to that person singing because, it's just a shot of him in the hallway. They're not going to set a shot up of him in the hallway and a shot of the person singing at the same time. That would take a lot of time and that would be ridiculous. So they obviously shot Bane as a single by himself. And that shot didn't have any dialogue in it originally. If he did not say there's a lovely, lovely voice, there's no reason for Christopher Nolan to have had a mic on Bane. So I think that's a rumor that Christopher Nolan started, like the lovely, lovely voice thing was a ad lib. I don't believe it was an ad lib. I think that was in the original script, and I think that was put in there purposely. And then one of the things that I didn't like about The Dark Knight Rises was I didn't think they put much emphasis on Bane breaking Batman's back. I think there could have been a lot more fanfare, and I thought the music could have been more dramatic because this is like a big pivotal scene, but it basically happens in the span of 10 seconds. There's no fanfare. There's no dramatic music. That would have been a big, huge, dramatic moment, and I just don't think it was handled properly. I think, if somebody ever decides to go back and revisit that movie and do Bane breaking Batman's back again, which I don't think they will. It was a pretty big point of the whole movie of Batman, The Dark Knight. So I probably pretty much think that this is the only time we're going to get to see Bane breaking Batman back for probably the next 30 or so years. I think, I just didn't like it. I think they could have handled it better. I think there could have been more to it than that. And then one of the things that I think is I think that Talia al Ghul faked her death because, I don't know Marion Cotillard personally, but I know Marion Cotillard is a really good actress. She's done really great in a lot of her films. She was great in Inception. She was in Inception. She's done a lot of really good work. She's a really solid actress. But Talia al Ghul's death, where she goes, "My father's work is done," that was really, really horribly acted. But I think you could save it. I think if Christopher Nolan wants to do a fourth Dark Knight film, I would call it The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, because there's been a lot of movies where they just ignore all the movies that came before it. So if you wanted to, you could ignore the Superman versus Batman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad, and I think Nolan could do a Batman 4 with the Christian Bale Batman, and I think that Talia al Ghul could be, she faked her death because I know Marion Cotillard is a good actress and she could have done a better death scene than that. I think Talia al Ghul was a bad actress, and Talia al Ghul's character faked her death, and that Talia al Ghul is going to come back, and it's going to be revealed that she was pregnant, and that she had Batman's son, and then Batman and Catwoman and Robin could all come back, and it could be a big jamboree. Maybe my favorite line in the movie is when Base man immediately adopted the dark. I was born in it. Yeah, that was There was a lot of really quotable lines in all the Nolan trilogy, like you either die a hero or you become, or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. It's not who I am on the inside, but what I do that defines me. Like that was one of the things that I think was really, really made Batman great. Is there were a lot of really, really, really good lines in those movies. There were a lot of real, and David S. Goyer was the guy who wrote the Dark Knight trilogy. He wrote it with Christopher Nolan and Jonah Nolan. And David S. Goyer is a really great writer. He wrote all three Blades. And from a writing standpoint, all three Blades are amazing, especially if you read the scripts. He has such a master of vocabulary and sentence structure. He's a really good writer. And he wrote Batman versus Superman. But again, he wrote it with some other guy that wrote Argo. And the guy who wrote Argo, I mean, Argo was an okay movie because it was adapted from a book. It wasn't that screenwriter's original work. And Ben Affleck actually helped him out and did a lot of work. But the screenwriter on that movie was horrible. That worked with David S. Goyer, the one that worked on Batman vs Superman. He went on to write Rise of Skywalker, which was a horrible movie. And Chris Terrio. Or no, was it Chris Terrio? I got to do this. I got to look this up. Let me see. Who wrote Argo? Wasn't Chris Terrio. It was... It was Chris Terrio. Chris Terrio did a horrible, horrible job on Batman versus Superman. And he did a horrible job on Rise of Skywalker. So I don't like that guy at all. And so there we go. So let me see. I think I've got more, but no, I think I'm done. So again, I would give Batman Begins 9.5. I would give The Dark Knight a 10. One of the best movies of all time, one of the greatest films of all time. And I would give The Dark Knight Rises, I'm not even going to give it a 9.5. I would give it a 9.7 because, again, even though I like The Dark Knight more than I like The Dark Knight Rises, I've seen The Dark Knight Rises a lot more than I've seen The Dark Knight. And there's tons of stuff, cool little Easter eggs everywhere in there. And so that's going to end my review. So my name is Randy Brown for Cameraman 2021 and the Mayor of Magic. I will see you later. That has been my Dark Knight review. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you all later. My name is Randy Brown. I do the card tricks, but you all bring the magic. Thank you.